What's up, you guys? Seth Grimes here with another full movie spoiler review, this time for the movie Scream. Not the original Scream, but the 2022 version of Scream, aka Scream 5. Of course, poking fun a little bit in a meta way, as Scream always does, at the way that horror reboot sequels like Halloween are just taking the title of the original nowadays and not going with the numbered system. I think that's the reason why they went with that direction. Otherwise, it's just silly. It gets confusing when you do that. But I think that's kind of the point, because this movie, just like all the other Scream movies, not only self-aware and kind of poking fun at its own universe, but self-aware and poking fun at the horror movie genre as a whole. So I think that was kind of the goal in doing it that way here. But just a fair warning that we are going to get into full spoilers in this movie review here. So if you have not seen Scream and you don't want it spoiled, don't let me spoil it for you. Go out, watch the movie, and then come back and we can talk all about it. So the movie picks up where most Scream movies pick up, and that's going to be in a house with a girl alone and a phone ringing. Weird. It's a house phone. Nobody has a house phone these days, so that was a little awkward. Clearly bundled in with their cable and internet service so that they can get a cheaper bill, right? Because otherwise, why would anybody have a landline? But the landline comes into play. That's where we're getting the call here from an unknown caller. Also, the cell phone will play into it as well. Of course, the person on the other end of the phone, the mysterious caller, is a familiar voice, coming through as a regular man's voice to start with, which was kind of fun and unique. Similar to the original, where it was just a guy calling to, and just want to talk. Well, call somebody else, right? We got 800 numbers for that kind of shit. Well, in this one, this man kind of poses as the girl's mom's boyfriend. And he's just kind of talking as a regular person, but as things go, he tends to get a little creepier. He finds a way to slip the conversation into talking about movies and asking the girl what her favorite scary movie is. Very cliche to the Scream series, but intriguing nonetheless, right? You're kind of hooked in wondering where this is going to go and how this is going to play out. The girl mentions her favorite horror movie is The Babadook. I don't know about that. Babadook's okay. It's a little weird. I don't, the British movies are a little off to me. It's a good movie. It's fine, but your favorite? I don't know about that. She does mention It Follows, though. And Hereditary. I wasn't a fan of Hereditary either, to be honest with you. But It Follows, one of my all-time favorite horror movies. So, could shout out there on a couple modern horror movies that weren't necessarily around at the time of the others, to kind of bring the Scream franchise up to date and the references up to date. They even get to the point where the girl's like playing with a kitchen knife, pulling it out of the little holder thing, just like in the original movie. I don't think it's definitely trying. It's not trying to redo the original, but it's definitely trying to follow that same trope. Let you know that you are in a Scream world, and it's going to follow a lot of those same beats, with the intention, I think, to kind of flip it on you, because as the killer tends to, the caller, we don't know that it's the killer quite yet, tends to slip into being a little bit more violent and mean and cruel with the conversations. You realize that it is the killer. And the voice actor, I just want to get this out of the way, that the guy who plays the voice for Ghostface is the same guy that's in the entire series. And he just does a fantastic job in this movie. Like, he fucking nails it. I think, personally, I said this in my write-up for a non-spoiler review, that I think this is his best work since the original. I think he was just an absolute stud in this movie, a huge creep factor. the way that he was playing with his voice in this one, from normal guy to creepy killer, just beautifully done. And they kind of just get right into it. So the girl's texting her friend, and it ends up, she's got this friend, and she's texting her and like, hey, this creepy guy's texting me. And somehow, some way, the Ghostface killer had cloned that girl's phone so that it wasn't really her on the other end texting, that it was actually Ghostface, and he's saying, answer the phone, you bitch, that kind of thing. And they get right into the killer. Like, when the killer is revealed, when Ghostface appears on the screen, he just gets into it. There's no games being played in this one. He's not really trying to tease it out all that much. He just gets in and he attacks her. I think she, opens the front door, goes for the front door, and he just comes in and just stabs her, And when he gets in the house, he cuts the fuck out of her, and it's brutal. A lot of the reviews that I watched, like the non-spoiler reviews to get myself hyped up before I got in to go watch this movie, were talking about how extra brutal the kills were in this movie and how it was possibly, the most brutal of the Scream franchise. I don't know that I believe that. I think that might have been a little bit overhyped in the way that they were talking about it, but definitely the most visceral would be the word I would use. You feel everything. You feel the cuts. You feel the stabs. They just really, there's a tone of more realism in this that I guess can definitely give you the impression that they're more brutal. I don't know that the kills themselves were more brutal, but they were definitely more realistic, and you felt them more. They were more substantial in that way. And the Ghostface goes at her, and towards the end of this opening scene, he's on top of her, and he's stabbing her, and she gets it through the hand, which was another brutal one. And he stomps on her ankle so she can't get up and run away, just like stomps it broke. And that was really creative too. And right before the opening credits hit, you get like the cops are on their way. I think, at some point she might have called 911. And you get the cops on their way, or the alarm goes off, maybe triggers the police. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but you get the red and the blue lights flashing, and you can hear the sirens coming. You can tell the cops are close, and he's still just stabbing her. Like, this guy don't give a fuck, right? And I thought that was a nice touch too. Like, he's not trying to run away. He's not trying to hide. He's out to get her. But the twist on this opening scene is that this girl lives. The girl lives, and it was intended for her to live. As we'll talk about a little bit later, that was kind of part of the plan. But she definitely gets a brutal attack nonetheless, but I believe this is the first opening scene kill scene where the girl actually lives. So that was kind of a unique twist on that. But like I said, again, it kind of plays into the story going forward. So then we kind of get to this girl's sister. This girl's sister doesn't live in Woodsboro. She's hanging out with her boyfriend, and she gets the call to let her know that her sister was brutally attacked, but she's alive. And we're kind of impressed by that. That's where we find out that she's alive, and that she decides that she wants to go back to Woodsboro. And this is, apparently they grew up there. They're from Woodsboro. The little sister still lives there, and the older sister moved away. So we get that, and the older sister's like, well, I got to come back to Woodsboro because I got to be with my sister. And her boyfriend, she tells her boyfriend to stay. You don't want to come with me for this, and he insists. I'm going back. So they go back, and they go in to meet up with their sister at the hospital and make sure she's okay. Her friends are all there as well. The younger sister's friends are there helping her, talking to her, keeping her company, taking care of her. And this is kind of where we meet all the characters that are going to be in this movie, So this kind of sets up here's your cast of characters. Some of these people are going to die. Some of these people may or may not be a killer. So we kind of set up that whole whodunit, what's going on, kind of get a feel for some of these people. And it doesn't take long for them to find out again. Just only seen it once. I don't remember exactly how this plays out, but a call comes in to the older sister, where we find out that the Ghostface killer attacked the younger sister to lure her into town because she's the true target, and that she's got a secret that he knows about, and that she is the reason that the younger sister was attacked. So the younger sister was attacked as kind of like bait. She was left alive to lure the older sister, and I don't remember her name, Sam Carpenter, and named after John Carpenter, which is awesome. There's also great references to Wes Craven in this. Wes obviously passed away a couple years ago since, the making of part 4. And they do a lot to honor Wes. Everything from they show a shot of a street named Elm Street. There is a character that's flat out named Wes in the movies. So they really do a lot to pay homage to Wes Craven, and I really appreciate that. But so Sam, the older sister, we find out that she has a secret, and her secret is that she is the illegitimate baby of Billy Loomis, the original killer from the Scream movie. Apparently, because Sid wasn't putting out, he must have went and fucked some other chick, got her knocked up because they mentioned that she was pregnant in high school. And Sam reveals that she found out about this because her and her sister, they always believed that their dad was their biological dad, but she found out. She said she was up in the attic looking for Christmas presents, and she came across some old diaries of her mom where she finds out that her mom was knocked up by some other dude in high school, and then ended up, with the guy that she thought was her dad, and he just kind of took her in as his own. Or I think they said she told him that it was his kid. So they kind of lived this. Yeah, she did, because he ended up leaving. He believed that they were both his kids. And when Sam confronted her mom about it, she threw the diary in her face and was like, how come you didn't tell us, blah, 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 blah. Her dad found out at the same time, and he left their mom and both kids when he found out. And he, just abandoned them basically because he found out that Sam wasn't his kid. And then because of that, that's why Sam left town, because she didn't want to, found out that basically her dad was a serial killer, and she didn't want to bring that kind of trauma and damage onto her little sister. She thought that maybe it's possible that she'll grow up to be a psycho killer herself. So being the daughter of Billy Loomis fucked her up, made her want to leave her family, made her dad leave her family. So it really traumatized this family. And this is the secret that the killer knows, and this is why she was brought back to Woodsboro. So we have our reason, right? We have the stage set for why this is all happening again. Why do we have another Ghostface killer? In this world, the stab movies are still a thing. All the other sequels happen. So this being, they kind of poke fun of the whole reboot sequel craze that's going on. Even like it was addressed in, I don't know if anybody's seen the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, but they kind of talked about it there too. Just the trend in Hollywood of kind of doing soft reboots nowadays instead of sequels or full reboots. And they address this fully. The group of kids get together and they have a conversation, a very meta conversation about horror movies and stuff based on the stab movies. And this is all stuff that would normally be a little bit cringy in any other movie, but it screams, so it fits. What would be a Scream movie if they weren't talking about the state of horror movies? The first one addressed all the horror tropes that we established, up till 1996, all the horror tropes that we knew and loved. They kind of poke fun at those, right? And then with Scream 2, they bring it into the sequels. They talk about horror sequels and how it kind of ups the ante and all that. The third one, they talk about trilogies. And so now now we're into reboots, and like I said, it would normally be kind of cringe, but with Scream it works. So these group of friends are all kind of sitting around talking about this. Um, there's a kid named Wes. He's the daughter of the girl that was the deputy, the lemon bar lady, the blonde chick that was kind of hitting on Dewey, and Gail wanted to beat her ass in part 4. She's the sheriff now, and he's the son of her. There's 2 kids that are like twins, and they are apparently the niece and nephew of Randy, who Randy's sister actually was in, what was it, part 3 maybe? So her kids. I think she's in this movie actually, that sister of Randy. So there's, just legacy family members, I guess, to an extent, with Billy Loomis's daughter and that deputy's daughter or deputy's son. And then, the twins are related to Randy. So they kind of tie it all in that way. And the girl, the 2 twins, one of them's a jock and the other is basically just like Randy. She's the movie nut who she's the one that's explaining all the rules of the new horror tropes and that kind of thing. She's the one that goes into the whole reboot conversation, sequel, and it kind of explains how to do it, that a complete reboot or remake doesn't work anymore, but like just a boring 5th, 6th, 7th sequel doesn't really cut it anymore either. So you got to kind of combine the two, and she's the one that addresses that. And in that conversation, they kind of all discover that any one of them could be the killer, and they kind of make fun of that. They're like, it could be any of us, and that's pretty fun. But the older sister, Sam, the main character, the Sydney, if you will, in this story, decides that she needs to, I believe she gets a call fucking with her telling her that, I think I already said that she, that the killer knows her secret and that's why all this is happening. So she gets proactive in trying to solve this. She wants to go out and kind of put an end to this quick. So she's looking for help. So she seeks out the retired Sheriff Dewey, right? Sheriff Riley, Sheriff Dewey. And Dewey lives alone. Kind of a sad existence. He's living in a trailer. Kind of gives off the air of being an alcoholic, though I don't think we really see him drink in this. Or maybe he's a recovering alcoholic because he's drinking a lot of coffee in this. And he has since divorced or split with Gail. But Gail, he watches Gail on a morning show. She's a morning show host now, I guess, off in New York. And Dewey's just this sad, lonely trailer park drunk, kind of, So they go to see Dewey and they ask him for help. And he initially just says no. And he kind of questions her. He's the one, and it was a little forced in this scene. He sits them down and he kind of explains, he explains the rules, like how Randy did in all the other movies, how he kind of sat down and here's the rules for a sequel and here's the rules for a trilogy. He's the one who's kind of like sat them down. Okay, so here's the rules in these movies. And he even accuses, her boyfriend, her boyfriend's there with her, and he's just like, how long have you known this guy? Does he ask about the movies? Is he a fan of the movies? Is he creepy and weird in any way? But ultimately he says, no, I don't want anything to do with this. They're like, hey, there's the killer's back. Somebody's wearing a Ghostface mask. He attacked my sister. And he's like, you know what? I don't care. Leave me be. So the next thing after, he has explained how these things work. He explains that where you're going to want to look is the boyfriend and the inner circle of friends. That's probably somebody that she knows, that somebody that's close to you in your circle that's going to be doing this to you. So her next move is to go find out, from the friends and kind of figure that out. So she goes back to confront the friends and see if she can figure it out from there. But Dewey ends up coming with anyway because he feels bad, because he feels like, maybe he can help or maybe he has a duty to help. I don't know. He just comes back to help. He changes his mind, has a change of heart. Good old Dewey. And that's kind of where things kick off. And Dewey, in this scene, decides that he wants to, before he goes to help, he reaches out to Sydney. His first appearance of Sydney. She's out for like a jog with her baby, and he tells her, basically like, hey, there's a guy with a ghost face mask killing people. Just thought you should be aware of that. And then he also lets Gail know via text. He texts Gail and says, hey, there's a ghost face killer. Don't come here. So, of course, what do? They both come there. And so now we're at kind of like the midpoint of the movie. And here's where more people are starting to get killed off. It kind of slumped a little bit there where there wasn't really any kills. It was just a lot of like, okay, let's kind of dive into the root of this story. That's where we get the reveal of the Billy Loomis. And they do a thing in this movie, which is really dope too, by the way, with Billy Loomis. I don't know if it was kind of in that earlier part. I don't remember exactly where it comes into play, but we actually get a cameo from Skeet Ulrich, who played Billy Loomis in the first one. They do like a CGI on him to make him look like his younger self, and it's really bad CGI. I've seen some reviews where people are like, oh, it's great, he looks just like the younger. It's not. It's trash. We've seen it in Marvel movies, the de-aging CGI effect that they have now. They did it with like Nick Fury in the Captain Marvel movie, and Marvel, being a Disney brand, has the money and the budget for that top-notch CGI. I think this was just that step below. It was not great CGI, but you got the point enough that young Billy Loomis appears as kind of a ghost to his daughter. And she just sees him, and he almost like scares her, like he almost like he'll appear in the back seat when she's driving, like in the mirror. He's just like he's in reflections of things. He's a ghost. He's appearing to her. I don't know if he's talking to her quite yet in these scenes, but that's definitely something that's going on. And I loved it. I really appreciated that. I was surprised. I had no idea that he would be brought back. I actually honestly thought that Stu was going to be brought back. I seen an interview with both Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard, where they were both being interviewed about the Scream franchise together, and they were asked, about any future appearances. And Stu was, Matthew Lillard was pumped about it. He's like, hey, I just had a TV dropped on my head. He's like, I could have possibly lived through that. And so he was kind of playing it up. I don't know if it was to distract from the fact that Skeet was going to actually be in the movie, or if it was high hopes, but I kind of thought about it. I was like, yeah, I mean, that's possible. And I think there was even rumors that in part 3, they were going to play off of that Stu was still alive in jail. So, I definitely thought that he might make an appearance. There was one like bar scene where they were out. I don't know if they were at a bar or where the fuck they were. They were out somewhere, and there was some douchebag, and he ended up getting killed. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of murder going on from the opening act till into the middle of the movie. Basically, it was just a lot of setting up the story at that point. It didn't move slow. It wasn't like a movie dragged or anything. It just took a break from all the slashing and cutting and stuff to really take the time to set things up and introduce you to these new characters. But we get to, when we do start getting to the kill scenes, there was the lady that's the sheriff now, the blonde chick, Hicks, Deputy Hicks from part 4. She's the sheriff now, Sheriff Hicks, and her son Wes. She is, I don't know where she was heading, but she left the house, and he was taking a shower, and she gets a call from the killer saying that he's going to kill her son. And she's begging him not to and stuff. And she's like, oh, how do I know that you're there, or that you're even there, or whatever. And because she knows he was going to take a shower, he's like, do you ever see the movie Psycho? And then at that very, so that kind of hints to her, like, the opening scene in Psycho is a shower murder. So that lets her know that the killer is definitely there. But it also cuts to this great scene of the shower head raining down in the shower of Wes. And I love that scene because it was an homage to Psycho, because it was that exact shot that was used in the Psycho movie. And of course, the stupid remake that they did the same thing. But I appreciated that. So now we get this huge tension scene where we know that Ghostface is in this house or around this house. And this is broad daylight. This isn't nighttime or anything like that. It's just right in the afternoon. Wes is there all by himself. And, the sheriff tries calling her son, and he's in the shower, so he can't hear it. So she flips around. She's in her cop car. She flips the sirens on. She's racing to get back to her house. And, the ghost face is basically saying, you're not going to make it in time. So this was, of course, a setup, because as soon as she gets to the house, she's running up to the porch. And who steps out of the bushes in front of the porch? But Ghostface stabs her right in front of her house on the front porch, and then just gets on top of her and just rains down stabs. Stab, 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 stab. So this was just another scene, much like the opening scene and even the douchebag at the bar or whatever, wherever that was, because they're all high school kids, so I don't think they were at a bar, but for some reason I remember it being like a bar. Maybe it was a restaurant or who knows. But this douchebag guy gets murdered. All of these murders were kind of quick and kind of came out of nowhere. In a lot of the other movies, Ghostface likes to play with and tease a little bit. And he was doing that, I guess, by calling her and saying that, she won't make it in time and everything. But he wastes no time, as soon as she gets there, she gets it, And then, so now that she's murdered in broad daylight on her front porch with her cop car sirens wailing in the front yard. So there's a pinch of, it's a little hard to believe there, but you let it slide because it was a cool scene. So she bites it. Now we step up the tension, because now we have Wes alone in the house still, and we know that Ghostface is there. We've physically seen him there now. So now they do this thing with the camera where they keep doing like, where he'll open a door, like a closet door. And, we've seen this in many of the Scream movies where the door shuts, Ghostface is behind the door and attacks. And they kind of set that up multiple times. They do it with the closet, and they do it with a refrigerator door, like a pantry door. Like, they really draw it out, and they set you up for a lot of false jump scares, a lot of fake outs. And they just build the tension to an all-time high, following this kid around the house as he's just obliviously going about his day. And then we finally get the scene where he's about to open the front door, and then he gets attacked. And Ghostface, this is one of the most brutal kills in the movie, where again, it's not brutal it's not like a got you and leave your intestines hanging out like the original Scream, but he gets a knife through the neck, and it's slowly like he's trying to fight Ghostface. He's trying to use as much strength as he can muster to try to stop. He's holding Ghostface's arm, and he's trying to prevent this knife from going in, and you just get Ghostface just slightly overpowering Wes, and slowly, oh so slowly, sticking the knife through Wes's neck. And it's just so brutal to watch because it happens so slowly, and it just, you feel it. And then they take it a step further, and you actually can see the knife like coming out the other side of his neck, like it goes through his neck and like pokes a hole out the other side. And like the blood's just spilling out, and it's so, and then the knife just dangles there. Just fucking brutal. And again, not brutal in the way that he was killed, but the brutal in the way that they show it. They do it in a way that makes you feel these fucking murders, and it's just great, just great. So Wes bites the dust, right? R.I.P. Wes. And of course, his namesake for Wes Craven. And that comes back later, actually, because the kids actually end up throwing a party in memory of Wes. There's a big banner that says "For Wes," which is, again, just awesome. It gives me goosebumps to think about that kind of stuff, you know. Somewhere in here, somebody's watching YouTube videos about the Stab movies, trying to like learn up, because the Stab movies are referenced quite a bit. You know, they talk about how the first three were inspired by actual events, the Woodsboro murders, and then the rest just kind of go off the rails. I think they acknowledge that they're up to like part 8 at this point in the Stab series. And somebody's getting brushed up on it on YouTube. And there's a cameo from my boys, or my boy and girl, my folks over at Dead Meat. James A. Janice and his wife, Chelsea. If you watch the YouTube channel Dead Meat, I was the only one that popped in the movie theater for this. I saw that, and my kids, I was with my kids, and they watched Dead Meat also, so they're very aware of these people, and we just popped. We all just got super excited when we saw them on screen. We were like, oh my God. And nobody around us seemed to know, so that kind of disappointed me. I bet you there was a lot of people in the theater who were like, what are these guys freaking out about? But we marked out over the Dead Meat people, playing YouTubers, ripping on the Stab movies in the Scream movie, which to me just fucking chef's kiss. That was perfect. That was amazing. I was super happy to see them get that cameo in there, and it was a good surprise for me. That almost made the movie for me. That was like one of my all-time favorite parts of the movie, because I am such a big fan of the Dead Meat podcast and the Dead Meat YouTube show. So, after the murder of Wes and the sheriff, this brings in Sydney and this brings in Gail, who are now in the movie 100%. They're now in it. This has brought them back to Woodsboro. They're on their way to Woodsboro. Gail shows up. She has this really cool scene with Dewey where she yells at Dewey for texting her, and he says, you know, I wanted you to stay away. And she's like, yeah, right. Like, I'm going to stay away from this. And they kind of decide, like, okay, we're going to come here and we're going to help out. Because for Gail, she's just, you know, a nosy news bitch. And of course, she cares for Dewey as well. So she wanted to make sure that he was okay. And Sydney, because she's got kids, and she mentions she's got a couple kids, and that this is never going to go away until the killers go away. Now, I'm a little bit foggy on kind of how the events play out, you know, what happens next exactly, but we get to a point where everybody kind of clears out of the hospital, and there is, you know, the girl that was originally attacked is alone in the hospital, and now she's going to get it again, right? It was right after this, because one of the cops that showed up at the sheriff's house after Wes and the sheriff get murdered was the cop that was supposed to be watching the door and guarding the girl that got attacked. So now they race back to the hospital, and this girl's all alone, and she's being stalked by Ghostface. And this was a really creepy, suspenseful scene, too. The lights go out in the hospital. Another one of those you got to kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit, because especially after she was, you know, attacked, like, why wouldn't there be more people there? Security guards, cops, something. You know, hospital workers. The place seemed empty. But the lights go out anyway. You just got to just suspend your disbelief and just enjoy it for what it is. The lights go out in the hospital, and she decides, fuck this, I'm getting out of here. So she like does the thing they do in movies where you rip all the cords out of your, you know, you rip the IV out of your hand and the air tubes out of your nose, and she's gonna get away from the hospital. So she actually pulls herself out of the bed and into a wheelchair because her ankle's broken. And you can kind of see as she's doing this, she's ripping open some of her wounds again. She's bleeding a little bit. And it's really like, you know, you can feel the struggle. You can tell she's all fucked up. But she's going to get away. And as she's scooting away, she gets down the hall and she sees a cop that was, you know, some kind of security cop or something, laying dead on the floor. So we got another murder there. She goes to try to grab his gun, but the gun's gone too. So she's fucked. And Ghostface calls, he's hiding somewhere in the hospital, and he calls the older sister Sam, and he's basically like, you have the choice between her or your boyfriend. Because I think somewhere along the way she tells her boyfriend to fuck off. I kind of overlooked that part. Like I said, we're going to skip around. I only seen the movie once, so you can't expect me to remember it beat for beat. But yeah, she got creeped out by her boyfriend maybe at some point, or just worried about who done it, right? So she was alone, and she ended up being with Dewey. She showed up at the crime scene because she was friends with Wes. So also, while this whole hospital thing is going on, somewhere along the way, Sam told her boyfriend to kick rocks. So I think he goes back to the hospital. I'm not sure. I think they're both there. And so Ghostface calls Sam and puts her in a position where she has to choose. Who am I going to kill? I'm either going to kill your sister and your boyfriend, or I'll let one live, but you got to choose. Tell me which one you want me to kill. And she's just kind of, oh, I don't know. Oh, I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, Ghostface is like, you need to choose or I'm going to kill them both. And she's like, no, I'm just stalling for time. And then you see the elevator door open and she shoots a gun at him. Pa. And she's able to save both her sister and her boyfriend. But at that time, Dewey helps them escape and get away to safety. And I think he shoots, he does shoot Ghostface multiple times. So he aids in their escape. And then as Ghostface is down, they're getting on an elevator. They're getting ready to get the fuck out of there, the two sisters and the boyfriend. And Dewey goes, I didn't shoot him in the head. We got to go back. And they're like, no, we're out of here. Just leave it. Let's go. And he's like, nope. They always come back. I got to go end it. I got to shoot him in the head. So they go away. They go down the elevator. They're going to get the fuck out of the hospital. Dewey goes back to kill Ghostface. He's loading up his gun, and the way that they shot this was like a fucking boss. The way that they shot this just looked so good. It was like almost in slow-mo. You can see all the shells kind of hit the floor when he empties out his revolver and he's reloading it. And he's locked and he's loaded and he's going to kill this Ghostface fucker. And it was so cinematic the way that they did it. And he goes and he's ready to pull the trigger on Ghostface, just laying there motionless, and his phone rings. And he goes to answer his phone and he sees on the caller ID that it's Gail. And as he sees that and he's distracted for just that one moment, Dewey gets fucking stabbed right in the gut. Then he gets stabbed in the back at the same time with two knives. Ghostface killer's got two knives. One in the gut, one in the back, and then the killer just slides them both up, just ripping Dewey from fucking nuts to soup, just fucking all the way up. And it was such a brutal kill, but it was like a very cinematically done in such a good way for Dewey to go out. Dewey's been a legacy character. Dewey's been with us this whole time. He's survived. We've kind of come to realize that in all of these sequels, Gale, Sidney, and Dewey, they live in every fucking movie. And it's almost gotten to the point where it's like, come on, we don't even really believe that these people are at risk anymore because they always live. Well, Dewey, and that was one of the things that they talked about when you do a reboot, you gotta do something that shows that you're not fucking around. This is a new movie and new stakes and everything. And to do that, you kill off one of the legacy characters, and they killed off Dewey. And even the Ghostface killer, as he's killing Dewey says it was, an honor. It's an honor to kill a legacy character. And it was sad. It was hard to see him go because he's such a lovable character. But the way that they filmed it, the way that they wrote it, the way that they shot it, it was just so cinematically perfect. It was magical. It was a great send off to a character. It was a great conclusion to his character. It wasn't like, oh my God, they killed him that way, or why did they? It was just like they made you feel it. emotionally, physically, again with the visceral kills. You feel every cut, every stab. You feel every bit of it, and they really like tried to tug at the heartstrings there, killing off Dewey, and Dewey was dead. So I think somewhere along the way, Gail gets a call letting her know that Dewey was killed. And I don't remember exactly what else happens in this part of the movie, other than this kind of moves us towards Act 3. As the two sisters and the boyfriend are escaping the hospital, they're trying to get away. The younger sister that was attacked and was in the hospital, she's also asthmatic. They showed her earlier using an inhaler. Now she's, oh, I forgot my inhaler, or I can't find my inhaler. I always have it on me. What happened? And they're like, well, we're trying to get the fuck out of town. And I think there was even a scene before they left the hospital. Sydney and Gail show up there. I think that's probably when Gail finds out that Dewey dies. Again, I'm trying to go off memory from a first one. But they get to the hospital and they're like, hey, we need you guys to help kill. And they're like, nope, fuck you. We're getting out of town. And, because Gail and Sydney want to stick around and kill the killer. There's two sisters and the boyfriend. We're just like, nope, we're getting out of here. We don't really care what you want to do. We don't want anything to do with this mess. That's your problem. We're out of here. But as they're driving down the road, the younger sister needs her inhaler. So on their way out of town, they're like, well, hey, my friend's house, I got a spare one at my friend's house. So that's on the way. Why don't we just stop there instead of turning around? So one of the friends that was in that inner circle, that we met at the beginning of the movie and throughout the movie, those group of friends, remember I was talking about that party in favor of Wes. They're actually having a party at one of the girls' houses. And so that's the house that they're going to stop at to get the inhaler. So they're going to go to this party. They're going to go to this house to get an inhaler where there's a party going on, just like in the original where all the kids are partying, the high school kids. Sydney puts a tracker on the car, actually, for some reason. She just magically has a tracking device, and she sticks it to the car. So she knows where the kids are going. And it is revealed as they're on their way there, Sid's watching where they're going and realizes that the car is stopping. And she realizes that where the car is stopping is Stu Macher's old house. That's right. The house from the original Scream, where the end scene happens, the third act, where Stu and Billy finalize the plan, where all that big party scene is, and then the party clears out, and then, the final scene with Sid and everything happens in Stu's house. Well, they're back in that house, and this is like the big reveal that the girl that they're, the friend of the younger sister there, I think her name's Amber, one of the friends of that circle of friends there, she lives in Stu's old house. So that's where the party's at. And Sid's like, oh my God, they're stopping at Stu's house. And they realize, fuck, it's a setup. Like, for whatever reason, that's where shit's going to go down. They just know because that's where this is leading, right? So we're at this party, and it's full of kids, and there's lots of little fun cliches going on in here, like, the jock is making out with his girlfriend, and she's been kind of not willing to put out up until this point, and they're making out on the couch, and she's like, well, let's go upstairs, she's like, I'm ready to fuck you, basically. And he's like, I would, but I don't know that you're not the killer. And she gets all pissed off at him and runs out of the house. So then he chases after her, and he ends up getting attacked and gets the shit stabbed out of him. And then his sister, the girl that's basically like Randy, she's the nerd that's kind of explaining all the rules. Apparently she's kind of, they're playing off a lot of these tropes, right? She's fucking with some of her friends and like, hey, you don't do that. You don't go down to the basement by yourself, and this, that, and the other thing. So she's really playing up the I'm the Randy character in this scene. And finally the two sisters and the boyfriend arrive there, and there comes a point where they decide that they're shutting the party down. I don't know if it's because they've discovered that somebody got attacked, or if I don't know the exact reason, to be honest with you. I don't remember why, but they decided, we're going to turn all the lights on and we're going to kick everybody out. I think it's maybe just because the younger sister is there and she's hurt. I don't know the exact reason. Obviously, we'll get to the exact reason. I mean, there is a reason that they do it, but I don't know the reason that they said that they're kicking everybody out. But they kicked everybody out of the house, so that it was just the sisters, the boyfriend, and then the cast of friends that are still alive from the inner circle. So this just screams third act here, right? We've been here before. We're in Stu's house now. We got the party that's cleared out, and we got just the circle of characters that we believe are possible suspects in this. And we got Sydney and Gail are on their way. And it doesn't take much longer from this point to reveal that. Oh, there's a great scene before any of this happened. Before the reveal, there's a great scene where the girl who plays, who's essentially the Randy of this movie, right? Randy's niece. She's watching one of the Stab movies, and she's all fucked up and drunk and stuff, and she's kind of making fun of the scene in the Stab movie from the original Scream where he's laying on the couch and he's saying, "Oh, behind you," and the killer's really behind him. So she's saying, "Behind you, look behind you, you idiot, just turn around." She's talking to the TV just like Randy was, just like the character who's playing Randy in the Stab movie is doing on the screen. It's so movie inside of a movie inside of a movie. It's great. And as she's doing that, the Scream Ghostface killer is walking behind her on the couch. So as she's screaming, "Look behind you," and making fun of him for not looking behind him, she's not looking behind herself. So that's really funny. But because she's so smart, and is aware of how all these horror tropes works in movies, it occurs to her to actually look behind her, and she's able to avoid being murdered because she sees Ghostface and is able to kind of get out of his way in time. But it's right around this time that he's off screen. The killer's off screen. Ghostface somehow, I don't know if she runs. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but it kind of clears out and gets to the point where, okay, we're ready for the big reveal. So we get Sydney and we get Gail that show up to the house. And at this point, the younger sister's friend Amber comes out of the house and she's like, "Oh, I've been stabbed, help, help, help." And Gail and Sydney look at each other and they're like, "What do you think?" And they're like, "No, it's a trap." So like as that happens, this Amber girl goes, "Okay, never mind," and she shoots Gail. And then Sydney's able to get out of the way. I think it even happened before that it was revealed that Amber was one of the killers. The friend Amber. She's just kind of a background character. Like she's the best friend, but she's just kind of off to the side a little bit throughout the thing. She looks a lot like Sasha Banks, by the way, too. Like I call her Sasha Banks' little sister. So Sasha Banks' little sister is the killer revealed. I think it was initially revealed because all the kids before even Gail and I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. I know. Before Gail and Sydney show up, it's revealed that one of the other girls comes in the house and she's like, "Oh, the killer's here," and she's like, it's just revealed that Amber's the killer by shooting one of the girls in the head. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, she's the killer." So then she shoots Gail in the stomach when they don't trust her. So she's just like, "All right, fuck it. I'm not going to put on a show. I'm just going to kill you." And then so all the action kind of brings itself into the house where the final climax. And now Sydney's kind of going into the house and she's looking for this Amber girl. And, everybody's kind of hiding. And Sydney smartly is shooting through doors. There's one scene where they get close to the closet. If you remember, there was the closet where Sydney was hiding in the original Scream, where she comes out with the umbrella and stabs Stu. When Stu's kind of chasing her around the house and looking for her, she's hiding. So she walks past that closet, and I was like, oh, that's the closet. I'm thinking it in my head, like something's going to happen with that. She turns and shoots through that door. Really smart. I like the way that they did that, because it was just acknowledging that, yeah, people can hide in this closet, and I'm not even going to give them a chance to pop out. I'm just going to shoot. So as she's kind of going through the house, and she's like, I don't care, because she doesn't know exactly, she's basically like, I don't care, who you are. If you're hiding, you better show yourself now, because I'm going to shoot you otherwise. And she's shooting through doors, and she shoots the boyfriend through the leg. He's like, oh, why'd you shoot me? She's like, well, I told you, And he's hiding. He's being a puss, hiding in a closet, scared of Ghostface. I think he was attacked earlier by Ghostface. He's got a slice on his arm, which I think was an homage to Scream 2, where the boyfriend got cut on the arm and stuff. So a lot of cool stuff that they're doing in this final scene. Sydney's walking through the house looking for this Amber girl, and then it is revealed. I don't remember exactly how this reveal comes through, but it's revealed that the older sister Sam, her boyfriend that was with her the whole time, is actually the second killer. There was a call put through to Sid, and it was Ghostface, and he's basically like, before he reveals himself, he's like, nope, I'm the second killer. And Sid's like, oh, okay. So there's two of you. Weird. So, because they're in Stu's house, both killers kind of reveal themselves, and they end up bringing it back into the kitchen where everything took place in the original Scream at the end in the third act. And they're revealing their plot, right? And the way that they describe it is that they're both extreme horror fans, basically. They're like nutty horror fans who didn't like the Stab franchise. They thought the Stab movies were terrible, and they came up with the idea, because they're such huge fans, that they want to give the creators of Stab some new material to work off of, because it was stated that the first three were based off actual events, and then the rest were all made up. So it was their idea to kind of, let's give them actual events to base the next one off of. So they're kind of trying to write their own Stab movie, which is kind of a weak, in my opinion, it's a little bit weak sauce. The Amber girl, she's sort of in and around the movie, but there's not a lot to her where you're like, oh my god, it's her. You're just kind of like, okay, it's her. And then the boyfriend was kind of like predictable. Even Dewey called it all, like in the beginning, when the boyfriend and Sam first showed up at his house to try to get his help. He's like, how long have you known this guy? Because he knows you always look for the boyfriend. Turns out it was the boyfriend. And so it turns out he was a horror fan on the forums online. And then Amber wasn't really into it until she found out that her family moved into Stu's old house. And then that kind of got her excited, and she got all like hard-oned about, got wet in the panties over living in the house, the Scream house, right? The Ghostface killer house. So she met this dude in the forums, and they talked about their love of the movies and how shitty they've been, and they decided to make their own movie, and they were secretly dating each other as well. So a little weak, but it makes sense, like, for the story itself. It wasn't like out of nowhere, but a little weak. I was hoping, like I said, I kind of predicted that Stu would come back for some reason. As a matter of fact, I even thought that it might be revealed that this boyfriend was Stu's kid, and that Stu and his son were the killers. Like, I guess I was just holding out hope that Stu would make a cameo return, because he was such a great character. I had no other reason to believe it other than I just wanted it to be the case. But especially, and I guess what made me really kind of hang on to that was that they were at Stu's house. So when they're at Stu's old house, I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this. But so the killer reveals were kind of meh, and their reason was kind of meh, but it fits, it works enough for the movie. And they're ready for their final scene, and they don't do the thing where they're going to stab each other and kill each other and stuff. They're just, they're there to, I think they were going to try to frame one of the other girls and make her the killer. But, Sydney's there and that kind of thing. And I think Gail comes back and makes a save. And they do a thing where the Amber Girl gets hand sanitizer thrown on her. And you can kind of see it. Like, and she even says, really? Hand sanitizer? And she's still trying to attack. But in the scuffle, the gas stove gets turned on. And she gets, like, shot at or hit. And she, like, basically falls into the open flame and then bursts into flames and falls on the floor. So that was kind of fun. And I actually think that was an homage because she plays, little baby Sasha Banks plays a character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Quentin Tarantino movie about the Manson family murders. She actually plays a character who gets set on fire by Brad Pitt in that movie. So I think that was an homage to that. A more self-referential type movie shit. So anyway, she falls, and then it's down to the last killer, and he's about, I don't remember exactly what happens to, like, Sydney and the other little sister's, like, tied up in a closet somewhere, I believe. So it's basically like Sam versus her boyfriend at this point. And Sam gets one last little hint of inspiration. I think she was, she's on the floor and she's being attacked, and there's like a knife laying in the corner, and she gets tipped off, by the ghost of her dad, Billy Loomis, who kind of like spins it and becomes a hero in this movie in a way. And like he kind of redeems himself by assisting her in surviving. And she sort of embraces, I think she mentions, like, don't fuck with the daughter of a serial killer. And she just rage murders the boyfriend. Like, she stabs the ever-loving fuck out of this guy like a murderous, raving lunatic. So she lets out her full, how she was scared that she had that bit of Billy in her, and how she kept seeing the ghost of Billy, and she kept trying to deny the ghost of Billy and shutting it out and trying to block that part out of her. She finally, like, embraces her inner serial killer legacy, because also her mom, if you look at Scream 2, or Billy's mom, her grandma was also a killer. So it's in her bloodline. She embraces that, and she kills the fuck out of her boyfriend. Just stabs the shit out of him. And then they do a thing where, of course, Gail's still alive, even though she was shot in the stomach. Sid's still alive, even though she was stabbed in the stomach. And they both come, and I think they, they were able to untie the little sister. I think she did something, too, at some point to help out with this. She does a surprise little pop-up and kind of avenges things, too. I don't remember where she comes back into it exactly, but it's Gail, the two sisters, and Sydney. And they've just killed the boyfriend, and this is where Sydney's like, be careful, they always come back, and the Sam girl, Loomis's daughter, shoots, after stabbing the fuck out of this guy, she shoots the fuck out of the guy, shoots him in the head, shoots him in the chest. He's dead as shit, right? But as Sydney had said, careful, they always come back. Out of the kitchen, little Sasha Banks, the Amber girl, who we thought was set on fire and died on the floor, comes back running out of the kitchen, fucking half burnt, like a weirdo, like almost like Chucky. And I think it was Child's Play 1, right? After he was in the fireplace, he comes out and he's half burnt and he's all creepy looking. She kind of does that, the last, like, she's running at him, just, yeah, and she's all burnt looking and disgusting, and that was really cool. And then I think she gets shot too a bunch of times, so she's dead as fuck too. And that was basically the end of it. Gail survives, Sydney survives. They're both, told that they're gonna be okay, and then the two sisters survive. And they kind of joke, the younger sister's like, can we go to a different hospital this time? They're getting loaded into an ambulance. And then the twins, the jock, the Randy's niece and nephew, the jock, and then the girl who played the Randy character, basically, both lived as well. So a lot of people live, getting loaded into ambulance. A lot of leftover characters for a sequel, I'll tell you that much. but they all kind of get loaded into an ambulance, and that's the end of the movie. So overall, just my final thoughts, and I appreciate you sticking around for this past hour and listening to me recap this as best as I could. Just going off memory, I watched it last night. Obviously, I'm not going to remember everything beat by beat exactly, but I definitely covered the overall gist and meat and potatoes of it as best as I could. Things I loved, just kind of final recap. I really, really loved the appearance by James A. Janice and his wife Chelsea from Dead Meat. I fucking just got a huge pop out of that. I really loved Billy Loomis being in the movie as a ghost, guiding his daughter, kind of appearing creepy and being a reminder of her horrible past that she's trying to escape, but her then at the end embracing that inner serial killer in a good way to kill the bad guy, like the killer kills the killer. Like I really liked that part of it, and that he kind of encouraged her and gave her the strength and guided her through that, and pointed out the knife, and he kind of gave her a little nod in that scene, like, yeah, go for it, do it, you know what to do. And I liked that. It was a good twist. It was a good way to bring him back and almost redeem his character in a way, because he helped save the lives of these people. I don't know if he turned good or if it was just because it was his daughter and he's looking out for her from the afterlife, but either way, like, I really liked the way that they did that a lot. I thought Ghostface was fan-fucking-tastic in this movie. The voice actor, just, he was the best he's been since the first original movie. And even the physical appearance of Ghostface, the actor playing the actual physical killer himself, I thought his presence was at an all-time creep factor. Like, he was his most menacing, his most brooding, his most, like, you were scared as fuck of this killer. Like, he was intimidating. Just the way that they did Ghostface, all around nailed Ghostface. I liked that they were able to do the meta thing without being too cheesy. Like we seen in Scream 4, like the opening scene where, like, it's like a movie within a movie within a movie, where they're doing like the opening scene. Like, they get to where the girl's sitting on the couch and stabs her in the gut. Like, I think they got too cute at a certain point with, like, the self-referential meta stuff. And I think this sort of brought it back to the original. Like, it does, there were parts where it seemed a little shoehorned in. Like, I really thought where, like, when we first met Dewey, one of his first words were like, okay, so, like, this is the rules of the movie. And I was like, really? Like, you're going to say it like that? Like, I felt like they shoehorned it in a little, but overall it fit. I feel like it was the closest to the original movie as far as just presenting a meta, self-aware look at the horror movie genre without overdoing it or being too cheesy. And I liked the new cast. Like, overall, they were very watchable. I don't think they didn't need the old cast. They didn't need the legacy cast. They could have stood on their own by themselves. I think the two sisters were great actresses. The twins, the girl who played the Randy character, and I say the Randy character because she's the girl in the movie that knows all the horror tropes, and she's the one that's always like, you don't do this in the movie, you don't do that in the movie, you never go downstairs alone, and look behind you, and she's just, she was really fun. All of those characters worked really well for me. Things I didn't like, I thought, like I said, the reveals of the killers were very meh. The reason for why they were killing was kind of meh. Sydney and Gail were kind of pointless to an extent. Like, they did come in to kind of help save the day at the end, but other than that, like, you really didn't need them. There was no, like, Dewey really fit. I forgot to add him into what I liked. Dewey was fantastic. He was the best. Like, this was the best Dewey maybe ever, but definitely since the first one. Like, he really stepped up his game, and he wasn't as cheesy or goofy or dumpy of a character. He was very, like, kind of serious and grizzled. Like all the goofiness of him kind of went away in his just the tragedy of his life and all the shit that he's been through. He kind of came off as like the grizzled old cowboy back for one last stand kind of thing, and I really love the way that they did that. But they didn't really do that with Sydney and Gale. They were just kind of like, oh yeah, we got to show up and we're gonna help out a little bit, and it was kind of meh. You didn't need them. But overall, a fantastic fucking movie. Like, it was really well done. I ranked this as a 3 out of 5 hearts in my written non-spoiler review. Partly because the way I use the emojis in the written review as the heart ranking, so they don't really have a half a heart. Because I probably would have been willing to go 3.5 on this, actually. I had a hard time ranking it as far as like in the Scream series itself. Obviously, Scream 3 is by far the worst of the Scream series. Obviously, the first Scream was by far the best of the Scream series. Beyond that, when you take 2, 3, or I'm sorry, 2, 4, and 5, they're almost interchangeable. Like, I would rank this third. You know, I'd put the first Scream as first, the second Scream as second, part 5, this one as third, then 4, then 3. But really, like, if you were to say part 5 was your second favorite over part 2, I really couldn't argue with you. Like, it was so close between part 2 and part 5 as what would be the second best Scream ever. Like, to me, it's neck and neck. I gave the second Scream the nod in this one just because, I don't know, it was a kind of a continuation of the first Scream, and you know, it was the college life and the frat party and just in Timothy Oliphant, and just, you know, I just casual, and the opening scene in the movie theater was fantastic. That had never really been done before, so it eked out. But like, really, like, I wouldn't argue with you if you thought that this new Scream was the second best Scream ever. You wouldn't be wrong. Also, with Scream 4 being the in my opinion being the fourth best, like, Scream 4 was really good too. Like, you could really interchange any of those three and I wouldn't argue with you. You know, it's all subjective and everything, but overall, just a really well done movie. Like, if you like Scream, if you like horror movies, you're not going to be disappointed in this. It didn't do dirty by you. You're not going to look at it and be like, wow, they really went off the rails with this sequel. It's a fantastic watch, really well made, took really good care of the story, paid really great homage to Wes Craven. They just did everything right. You know, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to watch this movie or give it very high praise. So that's what I got to say about Scream 2022. Thanks for listening to my review and hanging out with me while we talk about it. Absolutely feel free to comment and give me your thoughts on things, and I'd love to hear it. And I hope you do go check this out. I also put in my non-spoiler written review that I don't think you need to rush out to the theater to see this. If you want to, if you love horror movies, if you love Scream, and you're looking for a night out, you're not going to go wrong. You know, you're not going to come away from it and go, I wish I didn't spend the money on that. It was just okay. No, you're going to have a great time. You're going to love it. You're going to be perfectly happy spending the money. But at the same time, being like the third best in the Scream franchise, I don't know that you need to rush out and see this in theaters. You can hold off and watch it streaming, just as good. It's going to come down to a matter of preference. If you're a Scream mark, you know, if you're a huge Scream fan or a huge horror movie fan and you're just looking for something fun to go see, please go see it in theater. Absolutely. But if you're just kind of like, I mean, it's something I want to see, but I'm not like a huge Scream fan, but I definitely want to see it, you don't feel like you need to go see it in theaters. You can wait and watch it on streaming. You'll be just fine as long as you don't spoil it for yourself, which obviously if you listen to this, you did. So, anyway, I'm Seth Grimes, and this has been another full spoiler movie review. Peace, love, and pizza.